follow or do you lead? Religion, organized religion, spirituality, life philosophy, there are all so many things out there. There's thousands of religions in the world. And I'm often curious about what guides people in life. And so I've gotten a couple of people together to have a discussion, an academic, low emotion discussion about religion, spirituality, and life ideologies. This is the discussion meant to show how people developed who they are and how they have an outlook on the world and what they're doing to improve themselves and what they hope others will do to improve the world as well. So, without further ado, I'm excited about this conversation and I hope you are too. But let's go. And today on Voices, I am so excited about this episode because it's one that's near and dear to my heart because I subscribe and think that I am a thinker, and I think I'm pretty open-minded, but I challenge myself today to talk about specifically the things that lead us in our life. So today's topic is, what do you follow or do you lead? The focus is on religion, spirituality, and the grander scheme of life. And today joining me are Jordan, Chris, Madelyn, Collin, and Brian. These are people who represent very different ideologies, faiths, and life paths. And I thank them so much for being a part of it. We want to have a discussion to just bring to light some of the other perspectives that exist in the world, because I think we live in a place where algorithms and clickbait fill up our lives, and I want to go past that. So no person can introduce themselves better than themselves. So if we would, we're going to go in this order. Collin, I'll have you go first, followed by Chris. Then I'll have Madelyn, Brian, and then Jordan. And then we will start with the first question. So Collin, if you'll start us off with introducing yourself briefly.
Sure thing. My name is Collin. I am the co-founder of a company called Finditly that does AI tracking. I am, from a religion standpoint, I grew up Christian, Baptist at one point, and my grandmother was Lutheran, and I left Christianity while I was in the military and became an atheist. It was a progressive kind of experience, but I certainly I made the jump and have been active with a Secular Student Alliance when I went back to college, and I'm still relatively active with cross-faith leadership in my local community.
And Chris?
Hey, good afternoon. Chris Corrado. I run two small businesses. One is with investments and insurance, and then one is entertainment-based with a focus on stand-up comedy. I was raised Catholic, did fall off for a while, and then did come back about 5.5 years ago. So I am a practicing Catholic.
Thank you, sir. And Madelyn?
Hey guys, my name is Madelyn Crawford. I was born and raised Methodist Christian, but I kind of, opened my mind to more things and now relate to the label omnism, which is like a belief and respect of all religion.
Thank you, Madelyn. I appreciate it. Brian?
Hi, my name is Brian Delahanty. I got a degree in biomedical engineering, and I'm now first-year dental student at UNC. I grew up and I was raised Lutheran. My mom's whole side of the family is Lutheran. My dad's side of the family is Catholic. But I grew up and I associate more with some of the practices of the Lutheran side of things.
Thank you, sir. And Jordan?
Hey guys, my name is Jordan. I currently am delivering cars with Carvana full time, and then also DJ on the entertainment side as well. on the weekends as well. I guess growing up, I didn't really grow up any particular religion. My parents didn't really get me involved in that much, but I would say that I tended to, I guess, believe in like a blanket Christian faith. Then eventually made my way to be an atheist. I wouldn't call it like I'd use more of a Richard Dawkins scale of the atheism, whereas like not everything could be absolute because you don't know. So I'm kind of like from a 1 to 7, like a 6.5, 6.2.
Okay. So you get the first question. You get to start us off. How would you define religion?
I would define religion. Typically, I would define religion as a ideology being shared by a group of individuals large enough to where they can have some significance. Just believing in honestly anything. For me, it's like a higher being. That's how I view religion. I would define that as believing a God, whether it's many or just one. I would view that as religion. However, the one that does kind of, for me, kind of challenge that notion, I guess Buddhism is considered religion. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't particularly think they believe in a God. They just believe in a way of life.
It's not a religion as the studies that I have had. Brian?
Well, I was going to build off of that point on Buddhism. I've always heard that is also being dubbed as a religion. However, the big difference is that, like you said, they don't actually believe in a God, although they do believe in things that are spiritual, just not an actual deity per se. But
right.
Yeah, I normally define religion based on it being a set of beliefs and practices for explaining both, and also moral code, often used to try to explain why like things are, where things came from, and basically trying to explain information that is outside the purview of what you can explain through scientific methods.
That makes sense. I think it does try to explain the unknown. So, Madelyn, what would you define religion as?
I would say I believe pretty similarly to Brian. I think it's a way of explaining things that we couldn't explain before, things we can't explain now. And like he said, just a way to make a moral code that makes sense.
I'm glad you said that. We're going to touch on that a little bit as well. Chris, how would you define religion?
I would define religion as a belief system that gives you a history on what happened, what you're supposed to do now to prepare you for what happens after this.
Okay. And Collin.
So I more narrowly define religion as something that people use to worship something that's supernatural or outside the order of what is natural, right? Supernatural or a super being, God or gods. And I know in some cases maybe there is no God, but they still are spiritual towards something. So I guess that would also be included in my definition. But really is something outside of the order of our natural scale, so to speak. So I know people who who classify themselves as atheists, but believe in some sort of spirituality. So I think that's still religious in my book, whereas there are atheists that are non-religious or even anti-religious. It's almost like what was it Chris who was referring to the Richard Dawkins scale? Strong atheist,
Jordan.
weak atheist, or is it Jordan? Okay, sorry, Jordan. I've actually met Richard Dawkins, and hung out with him back in Hawaii. And I've also met Arun Gupta, who's the grandfather of, the grandson of um, uh, Gandhi. So I've talked to them about these things before. And obviously, Richard Dawkins is very opinionated about his atheism. So.
And so, Chris, I'll have you start on this next question. So it'll be Chris, Madelyn, Collin, Jordan, and then Brian. So this next question is interesting to me because I think religion is a significant thing in the world, but I think that the trouble that comes with religion, and I think what often turns people off, is the organization of religion. When people feel the need to organize the people who have similar faiths, that sort of tribal thing, once the organization becomes a part of it and there becomes a hierarchy of humans, then I think that's where the issue comes. What effects do you think the organization of religion has on the perception of how people see the religion? So again, Chris, Madelyn, Collin, Jordan, and Brian. And I'll repeat the question as needed. So Chris, could you go first?
Yeah, can you repeat that again? I want to make sure I give the best response possible.
Yeah, so like, what effect do you think the organization of religion has on the perception of how people perceive it?
The effect? Well, I mean, there's so many different, even just Christian religions out there. So, I mean, a lot of times the effect it's going to have is based upon what the individual wants to believe, if that makes any sense. I can clarify.
No, it makes sense. No, I mean, you can clarify because I totally get what you're saying, though.
Yeah, I mean, organized religion.
No,
you know, and so as someone who's Catholic, you know, that was, from what I gather, the first Christian religion, and I mean, I'm sure that a lot of things have definitely changed throughout the years, but it's you know, it's definitely become not just faith based, but in some ways it's cultural too.
Oh, absolutely, I agree with that. Madelyn?
I would say, in my personal opinion, the organization of religion is kind of a thing that turns people away. They see it as something that's like you said, almost like a hierarchy of, you know, just all these different things. And I can see it as a way that people are kind of scared off.
All right. Collin?
Yeah, so first of all, let me correct what I said. I don't know why I said Arun Gupta. It's Arun Gandhi. I meant Arun Gandhi, but that's, I think
That's
Arun
fine.
Gupta
That's
is my
fine.
doctor. But I was thinking about that. Like, I need to set up a doctor's appointment. Anyway, yeah. So I think by nature of human organization, I don't think there's anything wrong with people organizing, right? I believe that, you know, whether it's religious or non-religious, people organizing to do something good is a powerful thing. And that's not, to me, that's not a supernatural aspect of it. It's just people doing good. Like I said, there are a lot of people, you know, right now I have friends in Seattle that have their PhDs in theology. They're really religious, but they still work with atheists, and they work with, you know, Jews and Buddhists and Muslims, and you know, they can still organize together and do something powerful. And so I don't think the organization of humanity is necessarily a bad thing. That said, I think that religion as a starting point to solve worldly problems can be problematic. So that's why I'm an atheist. But that's, you know, kind of curious to hear what other people think.
And can you repeat that one more time? Because you said religion to solve worldly problems is what? Because it kind of cut out on me.
Oh yeah, I don't think you know, religion to solve worldly problems aren't necessarily. It's not necessarily a good starting point. What I'm saying is, when people organize to do something good, is very different than, using religion as a vehicle to force people to do good, right? So there's, I think that those are two different things in my mind. So yeah, I don't think there's anything inherently bad with people organizing.
Okay. And Jordan?
Can you just rephrase the question one more time? Not to rephrase it, but say the question
Yeah.
one more time just to make sure I'm
No.
clear.
I got you. So, like, what effects does organizing religion have on the perception that people have of it, sort of publicly?
Okay, so I think that's kind of like there's good and bad. So, of course, for any situation, that could be uplifting for others that see that there is a group of people that show to be show and claim to want better for everyone and to build a community and doing good. However, I do think the bad that comes from that is the quote unquote misinterpretation that some other religions would claim the other religion has, and so that just comes with basic like tribalism and anything. So I think that's where the negative comes in, because it's very skewed to your personal belief and there's nothing like concrete overall.
All right. Thank you, sir. And Brian?
Well, I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head with that one, with the fact that it is good to be able to bring together groups of people who are like-minded, and it does create a tribalistic effect. In terms of the perception it does have a lot of perception for good, because I feel like a lot of times the biggest thing that stops these sort of community involvements and improvements from stepping forward is just no one speaking up and actually taking the initiative to organize something to try to better the area around them. And when these sorts of groups of people come together and they're like, oh, we want to do something to help the community, everyone's like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. That's how you get more people involved and you have a much greater impact. So I think those sorts of activities by religious organizations really does help improve the perception, but there are also a fringe sects of people in these religions that have the ability to do a tremendous amount of bad, especially if they hold any sort of leadership position in their congregation, let's say, because suddenly any negative actions that they say or make will then be cast across the entire group as a whole, since they're like, well, they're the leader of that group, so all of them must think this or want to do this. So
it's
a double-edged sword. Yeah, just a double-edged sword.
And it's the perfect segue, because Jordan alluded to it a little bit as well: misinterpretation and leadership. So the next question, and we'll go Brian, Collin, Jordan, Chris, and then Madelyn. And again, I'll repeat as necessary. Do religions and the organizations of religions need leaders? Do they need leaders? Because I think that's a really big thing. I mean, some of you touched on it a little bit, but I think that's a huge part of the organization part. So Brian, I have you go first, followed by Collin, Jordan, Chris, and then Madelyn. Do religions need leaders?
Using Christianity as the example, I would definitely say there needs to be some form of leadership structure, just because there are so many complexities in it that people literally spend lifetimes just trying to work through some of the fine details and understand what is actually trying to be portrayed. And let's face it, it's very difficult for even these people who are dedicating their entire lives to it to work through everything. There's always challenges that come up and beliefs, and they're always discovering new things every time they look at it. So I think in a way, having an organization, have a leader, definitely is a critical part of it for helping disseminate key information and really knowing how to apply it to members of people who are looking for religious guidance. For instance, If someone has just been through numerous tragedies in their lives, such as loss of a family member, they can go to some sort of religious leader and they may be able to offer them counsel and say, well, as you know, you believe this religion, it says here, this, that, the other, and give them tailored advice to their specific situation that helps give them the emotional support that they need. That would be incredibly difficult if you didn't have people who are in these key roles and dedicating their times and lives to doing this.
All right, Collin.
Actually, I'm in agreement with what is that, Brian? On that one,
Collin. So
Yep.
do
Hello?
religions? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Yep. Yeah, I said I'm actually in agreement with him on that one. That I think, religious or not, of course, I would probably say not. Even any organization needs leaders, and you know, it's as humans we tend to. And humans in groups, we tend towards entropy, right? Like, so we tend to move away from this organized sort of fashion. So in many ways, I do agree that there should be leaders. I think the challenge is some leaders do abuse that power.
Absolutely, Jordan.
I agree with that. I think every organization needs a leader, leaders to help people. However, I do think that we tend to, as humans, with anything, use that as a crutch to not necessarily look into everything ourselves. So it's good. There's good and bad with it.
All right, Chris.
Absolutely. I mean, teams need a coach. Different political parties need elected officials. So, yeah, of course, you need a leader, someone who dedicates their time and life to this. So you have someone to go to, because if you're busy, doing your thing, you may not be able to pay as much attention to it, and therefore need someone who is a specialist in that to help you.
That makes sense. And Madelyn?
To be honest, my first instinct was to say no, because for me, religion is such like a personal thing that it's really something for me. I look inside, but after hearing all these opinions on it, I would have to agree that it is helpful to have, a leader in place to help those people that maybe they are busy or maybe they are having trouble looking inside. It's good to have someone who, specializes in that.
That's perfect. And so my question, and I'll go Madelyn, Jordan, Chris, Brian, and Collin, and I'll repeat the questions as needed. So if these organizations do have leaders, various different organizations of faith-based, spiritual, religious, whatever, how do they choose the leaders? Because I think that's where you start to have because what is the process of choosing? Chris alluded to like political organizations need leaders, and if we use that as a sense, we can liken it to popularity contests. And so we have to think: is the most popular person, should they be the leader, or is the most intelligent person, should they be the leader? Like, who should be the leaders, and how should we choose them? So again, Madelyn, Jordan, Chris, Brian, and then Collin.
With my experience being raised, in the Southern Christian Methodist Church, it really is like a popularity contest. It seems to be, at least. And I don't know what exactly all plays into it. I hope, their intelligence and, structure within their belief plays into it. But it seems to be popularity.
Okay. And so how do you think people should choose like the leader? How can they choose them?
I would say a better way to choose people would be, really see what they do for their community, how they represent their belief, whatever it may be.
Okay. Jordan?
I don't know. Honestly, you asking that question kind of reminds me of like a philosophical thing where how, like, I don't know, how do you choose that? I mean, I guess the simple answer would be to find somebody that you can be personable with and can understand you more, but at the same time, that's not without its exploits. And I don't know, it's actually a really hard question once you like really think about it, because like I don't think we as humans have done a very good job as a like throughout all of human history in picking good leaders. We've had a few good ones. There's always exceptions to the rule, but I mean, look how many bad ones we picked. So my short answer to that is I don't know.
That's a good answer, though. Chris?
Yeah, so definitely likability is going to be important. Hard work, passion, knowledge. So just using another sports analogy, when it comes to picking a leader, sometimes, if this makes sense, sometimes the most average player ends up being a great coach. So it's really going to be about somebody who can step up and say, hey, look, guys, this is what we need to do. This is how we're going to get it done. And if they follow through and things work out well and it's successful, then that should be the person that should be leading. So, I mean, I'm not obviously never been a big Patriots fan, but I don't know. I don't think Bill Belichick ever played football. And he might have. Actually, I think he did play, but let's just be honest. He did something right with that team, even if you want to get into the whole, without going into the whole cheating and Deflategate and all that.
Right.
The guy.
Can I? Oh, sorry.
The guy did some great things with that team, and I don't think he played very well when he was in high school or college, but he had a system that worked. So, why not just apply that with your faith or any type of leading?
Right. Jordan, go ahead.
Challenge that real quick.
Go for it.
And when I say challenge, I mean this like in a respectful way, obviously. But I think using a sports-related term, like obviously there's a clear goal in mind. However, with sports, like that goal is seen, whereas this metaphorical game of football that we're playing, that people play, we don't know if there's actual Lombardi there. So I think that's kind of it's a good analogy, like on its face. I don't think, we can necessarily judge like the average player that can lead them the best. What if they're, for whatever sake, leading the wrong? I don't even know how to like really say it, but like we don't know how good they actually are because we haven't seen that end goal until we pass.
Yeah, like, I don't know
Luke,
what is
go
a
back to that or
successful
no?
religion like, right? Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, no, he's right. I mean, obviously, we all can't die right now and then go find out and be like, hey, look who's right and who's wrong, and come back. But if
Right.
you have a certain faith, the goal, whatever the goal is, that, whatever your faith is, and you decide that this is the right way to be, then you have that faith that you do know the answer, and it will be proven to you when you die. But yeah, we can't like all die and then come back and say, okay, you were right or you were wrong.
Right. Just one more interjection.
Thank you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
What if the sport you're playing is football and somebody else is playing checkers?
Yeah.
That's it's like, I don't know. That's all.
I get it. I totally get it.
Ultimately, unless there is no afterlife, if there is, we are going to find out who was right and who was wrong and what happened.
That's so true. Brian, thank you, gentlemen. Brian, so how do we choose the leader?
Well, ultimately, I feel like it depends on each organized group for the congregation, or depends what level too of leadership. But like you said earlier, honestly, there's not a whole lot different between religion and politics, and so it's honestly up to each organization to determine its structure. But I don't think there's anything wrong with even just taking the whole election approach for choosing the leadership roles and who deserves to be in what position. And in the same way, if you find that your leader is someone that doesn't conform to your belief patterns and your values, then you can also remove them from the same position that you gave them.
I agree.
So I know that a lot of religions, like for example, my brother's religion, he's Christian, and so in order for him to become a pastor, right, he had to go to seminary school, so it was like a master's degree, and then depending on you know, the church elders, they would basically hire them. The pastor's function is basically like the CEO of a church. So it comes down to it. As an atheist, I know that sometimes this is kind of difficult because sometimes the loudest atheist or the angriest atheist is that dude trying to take down that cross or whatever, or the nativity scene in your local
Right.
wherever. He's the one that like the news wants to interview, right? Like, so you're like, yeah, you just want to interview the most crazy dude in our atheism. He's by no means the what it looks like leadership wise in the atheist community. Secularist community actually is what we typically call ourselves. But yeah, I mean, there's I think depending on the organization, that has to be up to the group of people, whether or not. Now, I personally believe that you have to be qualified to be a leader. So it's a combination of qualification and time, right? I'm not a big fan of, like, if we're gonna kind of segue to, we already went to sports, so let's go to politics, more controversial here. I don't believe in a politician, in voting for a politician that has no experience in politics, has no experience in public service. I think that is harmful to a society, to our society specifically. So, I believe that we should, and again, this is my belief. It's not necessarily true, but I believe that we should select our leaders based on qualification and the ability to, or time to do so. Right? You can maybe you have the qualification to go be a coach in in sports, but the reality is you've got a day job doing something else, and you're really good at that other thing, and you're needed in that other thing. Then do you just throw everything away and just go be a coach, or maybe you're not qualified to be a coach. You just hey, I don't know anything about I don't know, pick badminton. I don't know. I don't know the rules of it. I don't know that, but I can't go. Should I go to the Olympics all of a sudden and go start coaching those people? I don't have the qualifications to do that, and nor do I think that people should just vote me to go become a coach.
No, I understand. I
yeah.
do. I think the qualifications thing is a really good question, but it segues to my next question, and so we'll start with Jordan, Collin, Brian, Madelyn, and then Chris. So this is a question that I've heard as an argument against a religion, and it's, why do you think some people attribute human characteristics to God? Like, I've heard the saying, and I'm just paraphrasing: if your God hates the same thing you hate, then you may need to question who your God is. So I think that matters. So Jordan, I'll have you go first, and Collin, Brian, Madelyn, and then Chris. Why do you think people attribute human characteristics to God if they believe in a God?
Real quick, I'm sorry about the wind, so if it gets too bad, let me know.
All right, you're good.
But I think that's really a hard. So, in my personal belief, I think the reason why we attribute we being human is not necessarily me. Attribute God as being like humanly and having human characteristics. Personally, is just because it's just like I believe that it is man-made, and so we don't have any other choice but to attribute that godly figure, whoever it is, from it. Like, we have to attribute our experiences from that. We don't, if there is a God, we wouldn't know what it looks like, he, she, it. So the only way we can do it is if we make him like a powerful, like, king man, So I don't know. I know I sound a little discombobulated. That's a really hard question to answer.
No. I understand, but because that's normally the thing that happens with people is they attribute human characteristics to a divine, omniscient, omnipresent being, and it to me it's confusing. So that's why I asked the question. But that was a good answer. Collin, what do you think?
So I think that's specific to one religion. I think there are many other religions. There are other religions that believe their deities are animals. So, I suppose if you're comfortable and used to a religion that you know that assigns human characteristics to that specific deity, then I think you just got used to it. That's all. Yeah, because you can go talk to someone else who believes in Gaia or something like that, and it might be different. Maybe there are no human characteristics there.
Well, and I guess the phrasing is basically like, but it's characteristics to things we're familiar with that we like to characterize. Because I mean, you can include animals, you can include the earth, you can include nature, and we many humans in generally use characteristics of things they're accustomed to or that they've seen to a divine being. And to me, that's confusing. I get it, but it's also confusing. But I get what you're saying as well.
Yeah, and again, not all religions necessarily believe in a singular, omniscient, omnipotent, all good sort of singular being, right? So I still think, that's
no, I
very
agree.
specific.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Brian?
I feel like the biggest reason is exactly kind of what you were just alluding to, is the fact that we as humans are only able to really comprehend things from our own experiences and what we recognize and what we can actually comprehend. So if you do believe in a omnipotent, omniscient being like they do in Islam, Judaism, Christianity, then it's just unfathomable about how different such a being would be compared to our own personal experiences. We have to put in terms that we understand so we can try to pick apart more of the rhetoric and explanations that are going on in the religious teachings. So it's easier to comprehend that way.
Right. And Madelyn?
I have to agree pretty much with, what Brian said. There's no way for us to really even imagine, what a god or a deity or anything like that could look like or even be like. We just attribute what we know to what we think we know.
Makes sense. All right. So another thing is about the support system, right? So we talked a little bit about the religion in general and sort of people clustering, but one of the issues that we see that people have that may be combative in some organized religions is the need for support. So why do you think some people are either have negative energy or feeling towards people who don't believe in the same things? Because that's really the crux of the conversation is, so how do we be inclusive? And when we try to be inclusive and it's rejected, why is the reaction normally negative? So why do you think there's a negative reaction to people who don't believe in the same things that you believe? So we will start with Chris, followed by Madelyn, Collin, Jordan, and then Brian.
Hey, Lou.
Yes, sir.
Did you want me to answer that last question?
Oh, I looked at I skipped. Yep. Can you answer that one? And then I was going to start with you anyways. My apologies. Yes.
No, that's fine. So I would say, as far as, I would say relatability. So 2 points to that is, wasn't there a movie that came out with Jodie Foster called Contact?
Yes.
Where she was like an astronaut or a scientist, right?
Yes, sir.
So if you watch the end of that movie, when she does make contact, what did they send down to her? They sent a human more and her father. So she would be able to relate and feel more safe to talk to whomever, whatever she was reaching out to. So humans do the same thing. You use a human being to, I guess, help you relate more to it, right?
Right. Right.
And then, of course, if you're Christian, God came down here as a man, so naturally that would be a human to, use physical human attributes too.
I totally agree. And so the support system and rejection and the reactions to those rejections. What do you think about that?
What, people mistreat people differently?
Yeah.
Well, that's just like anything else in life. Human beings, a lot of times when they don't understand something or they fear something, they mock it, they'll persecute it. So when you don't agree with somebody or you don't even want to give them a fair chance or they're different than you automatically have negative feelings and potentially attack in one way or another.
I totally understand that. Madelyn?
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, so like it's just the need for support. So because many of the organized religions or the organizations of spirituality, religion, they have sort of a tribal sort of mentality or organized mentality. And then if that mentality is rejected by individuals, sometimes those individuals are met with negativity. And so why do you think there's a need, or why do you think that's the reaction to when people reject specific organizations?
I think maybe using Christianity as an example, some people think those that don't believe are negative or have like a negative connotation to themselves. And I think it's honestly out of fear for what they don't know.
Okay. And Collin?
Since I'm an atheist, I've certainly experienced this. When I'm not interested in that religion. So the thing is, I think it comes down to what is approved by the religion, right? If we look at any of the Abrahamic religions, from Islam to Christianity, it has to be God approved, right? So if you don't believe in God, that's one of the primary tenets of those religions. It's therefore, you are not one of us. So I, in some a lot of their texts, it's about who believes in this God. If you don't believe in this, then you're going to hell. If you don't believe in this, then you're bad. You're really bad in some way. So that is the metric by which some religions measure what is good. So of course it's easy to just jump to that conclusion to say, well, since you don't believe, then you must be bad, period, full stop. I'm not going to be interested in talking to you. So it's embedded in the religion itself.
I hear it. Jordan?
I don't know. I'm gonna have a hard time answering this question too. No, it's just weird. It's tribalism, obviously, but if we don't believe the same things, that difference can, I guess, for a more personal experience. Like if I believe, I firmly believe like the KKK is a very evil organization. If I find somebody that doesn't think that they are, that's troublesome because of the harm that can be done by that particular example. You know what I mean? So if somebody thinks that an abomination is going to, like, being in the world will lead them to hell, and I don't think it's an abomination, then I guess in their eyes, I'm leading the world and maybe the people that they love into a place that they don't want them to go.
Right,
It's a good
and
point.
I want to interject with that because I think I want to expand with that, like to reinforce my point that again it's embedded in the religion itself, right? So if you are part of a religion that says that, then it's likely that you're probably not gonna like me, just because of my non belief of your specific religion. So it's actually in your guidelines, so it makes sense that you would not like me.
Yeah, which is unfortunate. And Brian.
Well, going off of what they were just discussing, I do agree that a large part of it's the fact that humans by nature are just social creatures. We have a sense of need to belong to the groups around us. It's basically second nature at this point for survival from way on back. But the big thing about it is that that phenomenon still even happens in religions that are supposed to promote acceptance of others, such as, like they said, Abrahamic religions like Judaism, Christianity, and Islam that are supposed to preach things like tolerance. But once again, I think more regardless of what the actual religion even necessarily says on the subject, one way or the other, humans just don't like associating with things that challenge their sense of belonging.
I'm right there with it. So I got a couple more questions. This question is a two-part question, so you can answer both. So because of just the answers that everyone has given across the board, it leads to this question: how can religion be more inclusive, and should it be? And the grand question: so what happens on the other side? Do we need to know that or no? So how can religion be more inclusive, and should it be? And what happens on the other side of life? So we'll start with Brian, then we'll go to Collin, Jordan, Chris, and then Madelyn.
Well, in terms of becoming more inclusive, the biggest thing, honestly, is, and this is more of a societal need on a broad scale, is people need to get to a point to where they're comfortable in their own beliefs. They are able to more freely think for themselves, create these ideas for what they believe is correct, because at the end of the day, we all have theories, hypotheses about what there is or isn't in the afterlife, if there even is an afterlife. And no one actually knows or has any more authority to say than anyone else in that regard. So we need to just reach this point where we form our own ideas, and we are okay with walking away and accepting when others disagree with us.
Okay. And so what do you think happens on the other side of life?
I mean, personally, I think there is an afterlife. Like I said, out of the various religions I've looked at and what they talk about, their teachings, how it relates to my understanding of the universe, and what ideas I have about creation, Christianity lines up very well with my personal beliefs. But that doesn't mean I'm any more right or wrong than the next guy on the street.
Hey, I'm good with that. Collin?
I don't think that we should ever really lead with religion. It's like trying to go into, I've lived in Boston before. If you ever go to Boston and then just go to any bar there and say, I hate the Red Sox, that's the one way to definitely like not. It's like, so I think that by putting a team out there right off of the bat, it just it divides people from the get-go. So I don't think religion is a good starting point. I do think that we are, as an atheist and a secular humanist, we are all humans. You start off with there. I think that's a good spot to be in, to say, okay, look, we're all in the same human boat. Whether you think this, boat continues after we die, it doesn't really matter at the moment because we're all in the same boat right now. So we got to make this world a little bit better together for now, and believe what you want to believe in afterwards. So that's what I think. Now, personally, do I think there's an afterlife? No, I don't. I think I think we've manufactured that as humans because we've lived in pardon my language, a really shitty world, right? There's a lot of bad out there, and if you experience a lot of that bad, there's got to be something better. You've got to have some sort of hope to bring you to that. And if you're nearing the end of your life, it's sad. It genuinely is sad if you think that there isn't an afterlife. So I can see how a lot of people will use that to kind of get them through the day, right? That said, I don't think that. I think I don't think that there is an afterlife. So I think that for me, I want to focus on making this world a little bit better. Not trying to escape it, not trying to bide my time until I die, so that way I can move on to the next world, or get reincarnated into Beyonce or something like that, depending on my religion. So
Right.
that's my belief.
All right, Jordan.
Can you restate the question?
Yeah. So, how can religion become more inclusive, or it should even be more inclusive? And what happens on the other side of life, in your opinion?
I don't think religion inherently can be more inclusive than it already is, because I think even now there's a stretch for it to be inclusive, and I think that's largely due to there's a lot of contradictions within like the text that people read, and it's kind of confusing. So it's kind of like the book's like is final. That book is final. It's not being, it's not like a science book that, once you find out new information, it changes this way. Like it is what it is at this point. There's no changing it. And so I think we're already seeing the struggle with that now, with people kind of being more open to other things with the religion. So what's the answer to that question? And I don't know if there's an afterlife, and I don't want to make a claim I don't think it's smart for me to make a claim that I don't actually know. I guess for giggles. I don't know. I actually don't know. I don't want to. Yeah, that's my answer.
No,
I don't know.
I absolutely respect that, because the interesting thing before I have Chris and Madelyn answer is that there's an interesting thing that people are afraid to say I don't know. I feel often because they think people will think they're unintelligent, but the ability to know you don't know, I think, is one of the highest levels of intelligence, in my opinion. But that's just me interjecting. So, Chris,
Well, thank you very much.
how can religion be more inclusive, or should it be? And what happens on the other side?
So I think the best way, if you want it to be more inclusive, it should be how you approach somebody. So if you're a nice person, right, and whether you're just that way because that's who you are, or that's has something to do with, that's part of your faith, maybe not lead off with why you're doing what you do. So, for example, if I do something nice for somebody, they might ask me, well, hey, why did you do that? I don't necessarily have to lead off with, well, I'm a Christian and that's just what we do. Or I'm doing it in the name of Jesus. So you could just be like, hey, I just wanted to help you and do the right thing, and see where it goes from there.
Right. That makes sense. So what do you? Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say you might, freak somebody out or scare them away when you could potentially have more commonalities with them, but kind of already push them away a little bit potentially.
Makes sense. So what do you think happens on the other side of life?
Well, I mean, I don't know 100% all the details, but I definitely believe there is an afterlife. So just because I feel like I talk to God every day, and he, in one way, shape, or form, he answers me, even if it's what I don't want to be told, and I just don't. Okay. Right, exactly. And of course, I don't necessarily believe in coincidence, so I just feel like too many things have happened in my life that there's no way this is all just coincidence. But what happens if I had to tell you what I think happens I think you're not going to feel pain anymore. I don't think you're going to feel any type of sadness, and everything is always just going to be good and happy. That sounds crazy because as we think about it right now, when we think of good and happy, how do you know the difference without bad? But I just feel it'll be a totally different situation because we're not going to be in this same body anymore. There.
That's good. And Madelyn, so how can religion be more inclusive, or should it even be inclusive? And what happens on the other side of life?
I'd say for religion to be more inclusive, as crazy as it may sound to some people who follow religion, you just gotta be more open-minded. I know that's something some people struggle with because, like they said, that book is final. That's what some people live and die by. But you have to be more open to people that don't necessarily fit into your religion. Because if it is your religion, like Christianity, it is your goal to go help people find their way. So that's how I would say maybe consider people who don't fit your bill of Christianity.
Okay. And what do you think happens on the other side of life?
To be honest, I don't know because, I kind of learn about a lot of different religions, be it our, notion of heaven or your own personal heaven or reincarnation. It could be any of those things. I couldn't tell you.
I do have a question where it comes to religion and family life. So with this, if you're going to be or you are a parent, how important is it that your child believes the same thing you believe? And how would you feel if they chose to believe differently? So I'll have Chris go first, followed by anyone else who wants to follow.
So I believe it's very important. However, I wouldn't necessarily push it too hard on them. I think you should educate your child on what you believe, but then at a certain point, he or she, when they become an adult, it is now their decision. And if they decided not to go the same route I went, I would just like to know why.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir. Anybody else want to chime in?
Sure. My view on the whole matter is more of the fact that as a parent, it's important for you to try to share all of your wealth of knowledge with your children to help prepare them for the world. And in some ways, that can also be to give them emotional and religious guidance. So in a way, I think it is important to share what you know or what you believe and your thoughts on it. But at the end of the day, as several people have discussed earlier, religion's a very individualized thing. It's up to that child to make their own beliefs. And your job as a parent to respect it and continue to love and accept your child as part of your family.
Awesome. And I think, Collin, you wanted to chime in. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, sure. So I am a parent, and I obviously as a parent, you do want to try to imbue as much of your belief and wisdom to your kids. And so yes, I would hope that my daughter would certainly have similar belief in the sense that we don't think religion is a good thing, but at the same time, if she became a Christian after 18 or something like that, that's kind of her deal. I know it'd probably be pretty hurtful for my wife, who experienced a lot worse things growing up in the Christian community. But that's I think it's still an individual path that she needs to take.
All right. Thank you, sir. Jordan and Madelyn, did you want to chime in?
I can chime in. I think for me, it's not really important that they share my same belief. I do think it's important, however, that I set the foundation for them to come to an like not intelligent. It sounds mean.
Informed.
An educated, informed, their own informed opinion of it. There we go. Thanks. Yeah, because
Right.
I was fortunate enough that my parents, we never even talked about religion, so I just kind of like went along with the crowd until like one day I was like, wait, why am I doing this? It wasn't being reinforced at home in the way that it was in society. And so that gave me the chance to get away from it, to start asking questions without feeling like I was pressured into something. So I just want to set like the building blocks to being informed and making sure that you're getting the information the right way, and that you aren't misconstruing information to get to that point, and that you're, making an informed decision. So that's what's important to me.
Okay. And Madelyn, did you want to chime in or no?
Yeah, I just had to say that I don't think it's necessarily important to share the same belief, but let them know that it's okay to, branch out and explore beliefs that, not even something I know, just make your own decision.
And that's a very fair answer. So you all have given fantastic, great, insightful answers. And so as we wrap up, I've named the podcast Voices intentionally because I wanted to make sure the voices of the people that I know and have come encounter with is shared in a way where people can hear them. It's more than typing, right? And so as the final word, I like to have all the contributors to have the final word because it's about you and definitely not about me. But I do thank you for being a part of this conversation. And so what I'll have is us end the way we started, where I'll have Collin go first, followed by Chris, Madelyn, Brian, and Jordan. Any final thoughts you have, you can express it. So it can be about the topic we've been talking about, or it can be about anything that is on your heart. So again, I thank you, and I'll start with Chris. Collin. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I appreciate everyone kind of reinforcing my point that, leading with, hey, I'm a Boston Red Sox fan, in a bar full of non-Boston Red Sox fans or something like that is not a good idea, right? So, I don't think that, leading, one foot with religion first is a good idea. So that's kind of my thoughts on religion itself. That said, what I've been wanting to be consistent about was, we're all humans. We're all in the same boat right now. Whether or not you believe in something afterwards, it's your spirit, your personal spirituality, and your personal religion. That said, I think we can all get together and work to solve this, current outbreak right now together. And I'm certainly dedicating some of my time and resources to help mitigate the spread of COVID-19 via artificial intelligence, by gathering the data that's in this world and not out of this world, but actually analyzing that, saying, okay, let's try to keep people here, right? Because we have no idea what's after that anyway.
It's true. Well, thank you, sir. And Chris.
Yeah, Lou, thank you once again for inviting me in on one of your podcasts. I appreciate that you value my opinion, and I would definitely like, if you decide to do a political one, I really, really would like to be on that one too. So please keep me in mind for that. And I do thank everyone else listening in because, it might seem like, we have a lot more free time on our hands, but in a way, everyone's still kind of busy in one way or another. So apparently not everybody here is on the same time zone. So that's kind of cool that everyone respects you, Lou, and, was cool enough to jump in on this. So thank you. And yeah, I think I'm glad that everyone came on here and, said how they felt. And I especially appreciate the gentleman who shared some of his words on what I had said earlier, because a lot of times that's how you learn more anyway, when someone says, hey, this is what I think. So sometimes you learn more from people that are different than you, or people who speak up and say, hey, that's not what I think. And as long as you do it respectively, that's awesome. So thank you.
All right. And Chris, you will definitely get an invite. Madelyn?
Also wanted to say thank you guys for having me. It's very interesting to hear, all we've got a big spectrum of people on this chat, and I don't really have much to say except for, I think most of us are in quarantine right now, so just keep your faith up and remember to keep loving each other, even if you have to do it socially distanced.
All right. Thank you. And Brian?
Yeah, I also want to say thanks for including me. If you ever need someone for a future discussion on a topic, feel free to reach out. But the big things I just want to emphasize are that I don't think that, I think the biggest thing is that just as a people, we need to get to a point where we're more confident in our own beliefs and more willing to accept people who do have different beliefs up front. So that way, we're able to listen to them and have more constructive, open dialogue and walk away without feeling the need to convert them to our way of thinking. And that being said, I also think that in terms of religion, we need to step away from the idea of trying to use religion or science to disprove each other when in reality, they cover entirely different fields of knowledge. Never going to find a molecular formula in the Bible, and you're never going to be able to use the scientific method to prove anything about the afterlife.
I think that's pretty fair, man. And Jordan, to close us out.
Oh, what's up, y'all? I appreciate the time that you guys took to hear everybody out. I think ultimately what and hopefully we open this dialogue like even more like later on down the road with this topic and other topics as well. But I just think ultimately my biggest thing when talking about religion on a personal level is just more of how we use ideas and ideologies as a way to discriminate. And so, it's good to, people have good intentions, be it religious or not. But sometimes those good intentions lead to bad things. And I do think that religion as a whole, throughout human history has led to some good things and some great things, but it has also led to a lot of devastating things, and things that aren't necessary. And, for lack of a better phrase, the pathway to hell is paved by good intentions. So I think that, while we, religious or not, while we have our ideas, it's fine. I do think that, religion as a whole needs to be a personal journey. I think it's okay to have community. However, it does need to be a personal, in my opinion, it needs to be a personal journey that isn't enforced lawfully and kind of, as Christopher Hitchens would once say, and I don't mean it in any disrespect. It's like, we all have our toys. Let's leave them at home to play, instead of trying to force others to play with our toys. So other than that, love everybody, respect everybody, because, we're all different, but we're all human. And our differences make us human and make us unique.